I know this is typically a Trups channel thing. Yeah, well, I'm not Trups. I'm his, mate. Let's go with that. Trups is very busy with doing, stuff, and, I don't know what he's doing. I don't care enough to ask. But I did offer to help him out as best I could by doing a video for him. And I thought I would talk about the BBC. Those of you in America that don't know what the BBC is publicly owned television in the United Kingdom, where we, the British people, have to pay for a TV license, most of which goes to the BBC. The BBC is a propaganda machine that claims to be utterly unbiased and apolitical, but has repeatedly shown itself to be politically leaning in nearly every possible conceivable circumstance. They have been publicly shamed by some of the most well-known politicians in this country. Arguably the best known would be Jacob Rees-Mogg, who flayed them for their coverage of Brexit, the referendum itself. Now, when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling a bit low, I put on the 11-hour stream of the entire referendum result as it happened, because I watched it live, and it puts a big smile on my face. Just watching the presenter and all those they speak to get even more depressed. Their anguish sustains me. Skipping ahead to more recently, we now have Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. Now, because of prorogation, because of negotiations, because of the second prorogation, Boris hasn't actually done much in Parliament. He's done a few speeches and answered a few questions, yes, and he's done 1 PMQs of a possible 6. Hopefully he'll do one on Wednesday. That should be delicious. To make up for the fact that he's not been in Parliament as much, Boris has been doing a People's PMQ, where he will live stream on The Sun, a tabloid YouTube channel. He will live stream answering questions given to him. According to a journalist for the BBC called Nick Robinson, this behaviour is akin to a dictator, because answering questions the public want answered makes you a dictator. Nick Robinson has called this a form of propaganda, and that it is undemocratic to avoid proper scrutiny by journalists, because cutting out the middleman and going straight to the people is bad, like drugs and Napster. It is worth pointing out that by going straight to the people, it is unfiltered, and I mean in the sense that by going through the British press, he is avoiding their bias to give them a direct answer. I've watched these PMQs, by the way. They're quite enjoyable, actually, and he seems very enthusiastic. Now imagine the spin political editors and journalists like you, Nick Robinson, would put on this, and then we, the British people, have to then waste our time ascertaining whether there is any truth to what you have said or not. Let's not forget here, the trust in journalists is pretty low. How are you going to earn the trust of the people? Now, I should say, you have a point about avoiding proper scrutiny by journalists. Perhaps Boris should do more press conferences. I am totally in favour of that, because honestly, watching you ask stupid questions and him answer you is quite funny. The full quote of what Nick Robinson said is, "There is no doubt that all politicians know that they can broadcast directly using social media. Johnson regularly does videos on Facebook and regularly does videos on Twitter. And he has a great joy on Facebook of calling it the People's PMQs, which The Sun also broadcasts, which largely consists of his aides picking questions that they want him to answer. Well, he does choose it on his tablet, at least. There is no capacity for anybody to say, 'What did you mean about that?' or 'Hold on a second,' and so that's democracy. It ain't democracy. It is a form of propaganda used by dictators down the ages. Yes, you're right. Castro was renowned for using Facebook to get those people in line, and so was Hitler. Yes. In fact, I'm sure many people follow Adolf Hitler on Twitter right now. I got the point, by the way. I'm just being a bit of a dick. I disagree with Nick Robinson on this. With what is going on, I tend to take the stance that perhaps it would be more advisable for Boris to spend a little more time engaging with journalists. However, this does come across as salty journalists getting salty because they're not having enough time with their Prime Minister, because he's their property and they get first dibs, but because he's circumventing the very people who feed the fake news that many of us know about. I think he's being more direct. Now yes, his aides are selecting the questions, but you are arguing from a position that these answers are insufficient. I have watched, and I understood enough to know he wasn't being as much of a bullshit artist as you would like to peddle. The BBC is the very propaganda that you claim Boris is using. Why would he want to go through you?